We're drinking out of the same pipes that Benjamin fucking Franklin drank out of. Let's stop making poison. Let's stop buying poison. Let's stop eating poison. Let's stop polluting the earth. If I told you that most humans have plastic in their blood and in their brain, would you believe me? There have been studies that have found microplastics and nanoplastics all over inside of humans' bodies. Just in the last 50 years, this has ramped up so much, especially in the last 10. And I have been taking these studies seriously ever since I've been seeing them. They've been pretty hidden. It hasn't been on the news until recently. I just saw, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I was over having dinner with my dad and he watches the news, so I saw finally this story on how water bottles are leaching way more microplastics and nanoplastics into the water in the bottled plastic water bottles, and then that is going past our blood-brain barrier, and people are finally starting to take this seriously because it's way more microplastics than were originally thought to be in water bottles and originally found in water bottles and in the water in them. So I've been taking this seriously since the 2nd grade, when my 2nd grade teacher told me that she doesn't leave plastic water bottles in her car because she believes it causes cancer if they sit in your car and they get heated up. And as a 2nd grader, I remembered this information my whole life. I still remember it currently. I remember her saying that. I've always taken her seriously, so I've never drank water from a plastic bottle in my car. And there's just so much more to it than that. But I try not to drink out of plastic water bottles. I try never to. Sometimes it does happen because conveniency, I know, but it's not just water bottles that's the issue. It's all plastic, and it's recycled plastic is an issue, and these bioplastics and alternative plastics that literally still have the same chemical issues that plastic has. So the solution here is to avoid plastic in any sense. Avoid it at all costs. If there's an alternative that you can use that doesn't involve plastic, please use that alternative. And heck, there is some plastic in the background of my video right now, and I'm well aware of that. I know that there's plastic in my blood. I know there's plastic in my body, but I also know that if we continue down this path, we are going to turn into plastic beings. Like, we are going to be, instead of mainly carbon-based, instead of evolving to the crystalline form, like spiritually I'm very into, and that's what we're supposed to be stepping into. That's kind of what our main future trajectory path is this crystalline form. But there's also an alternative timeline that I have seen and that just scientifically makes sense, that if we continue to consume and produce so much plastic, all of these chemicals, our bodies are going to start to not only have it in our blood and our brain and our stomach, and all of these parts of our bodies are going to absorb more and more, but we're going to like naturally start to evolve to kind of be like literally plastic beings. And I'm not just talking about plastic surgery. I'm talking about our bodies just kind of naturally evolving with that material in mind in our bodies. So it's a big issue, because then if our bodies are made out of that, then our thoughts aren't going to be as pure because of how it affects our body. That's going to affect the evolution. And I know evolution takes a long time, but it's really more of a mental thing. It's going to affect our intelligence. It's going to affect our capabilities. It's just going to give us all of these diseases, and then our food's going to be even more modified, and we just don't want to go down that path. So in order to avoid that big what if, which is not so much a what if, but if we continue this, it's a what if we continue down the same path. So it's not a really big, weird topic to think about. So what if we go down a different path? What if instead of using plastic, when it's convenient. We can use glass. Glass is great. Wood, even some metals that are like a nice, like copper or gold or silver, ideally. But even just something else, like literally anything but plastic would be great. Avoid styrofoam. That's a type of plastic. And I've done a video on recycling and how to recycle. But please avoid recycled plastic as well, because sure, it's great we're not throwing stuff in the landfill, but virgin plastic is better than recycled plastic. It leaches less into the environment. And if you are wondering how the heck plastic gets in the ocean, no, it's not the idiot that throws away a plastic straw just on the beach littering it. Sure, that's how a plastic straw can get into the ocean, but that is not how most plastic gets into the ocean. It's not just fishermen throwing over plastic materials and people littering beaches. Like, sure, that contributes, but that is like literally less than 1% of how most plastic gets into the ocean. That's how I used to think plastic pollution occurred, especially in waterways, was I thought it was just littering. No, it's from washing your clothes. It's from like the plastic in your clothing that gets into the water in your washing machine, and then that doesn't get filtered out. So that's why it's important that, well, it's important to wear good, like organic cotton clothing and good high quality materials rather than cheap Shein. Don't even get me started on how they treat their workers, but just the clothing in general is also terrible for the environment too. Avoid fast fashion. Buy from sustainable brands. I love getting vintage secondhand clothing, but the truth of it is that there is a lot of plastic in it. So get a laundry filter like a Cora ball or a water filter on your washing machine so that you can dump that garbage into the garbage instead of it going through the water system, not being able to filter out the nanoplastics and the microplastics, and then it goes into the ocean. That's how most of the water pollution occurs, is from washing our clothes and things like that, it getting into the water system in other ways than just littering, okay? Washing your clothes is a huge contributor to plastic pollution. I'm not going to say it's hard to control, because if we just start having better clothing companies, or if we start filtering our water better, it won't be so hard to control, which we should really be filtering our water anyways, because I'm pretty sure most of us have like the same general pipes, at least in America, from when our country went through an industrial revolution and we like built the pipes. It's not like we've changed the pipes. Like, they're still the same pipes, and they don't get like a deep clean. Like, they just continue to get grosser and grosser and grosser. Like, I have a filter. It's not really a filter, but I have this thing on my shower, on my drain, so that my hair, when it falls out, doesn't go down my drain and clog it, right? And I clean that, little thing. I clean that little drain filter every week, because it gets gross. But the United States doesn't clean the pipes that their drinking water is traveling through, ever. It's just, we're drinking out of the same pipes that Benjamin fucking Franklin drank out of, okay? It's pretty gross. So filter your drinking water for sure. Filter your shower water for sure. Filter your sink water, because you're brushing your teeth with that probably. And filter the water going out of your washing machine and going into it if you want to, because that's kind of gross. Don't let that plastic end up in the ocean. Anyways, it's not just about like the plastic in the ocean, it's about the plastic in, our bodies, obviously, because we're eating plastic too. Like, don't eat food that comes out of a plastic container. If you can avoid it, please avoid it. And if you're making food, like I like to make a lot of my food like from scratch, like fresh fruits and vegetables, and then I put it in a glass container in the fridge to store my leftovers. I know that it's super convenient to use your old plastic Tupperware, and yes, I still do from time to time, but I would highly recommend investing in some glass or a different material. I know glass breaks, but it's just good old glass, like, or wood or something cool like that. Love that. Metal or something, what have you. But you're eating plastic, like, not even just in plastic packaging, but then the mixed material packaging usually has plastic in it. Even if you get canned food, if it's in like a metal can, like when you think of canned goods, there's a plastic like kind of film in that actually, which drives me crazy, and that leaches so much plastic into that food. Ooh. So fresh is the way to go, and usually if you get frozen stuff, it's froze in like a plastic bag. Usually if you get anything, it's in a plastic bag. I know it's hard to avoid, but it's inevitable. We're eating plastic, and please don't ever microwave plastic. Please don't ever microwave anything. I know it happens. I microwave butter and stuff sometimes, but that's about it. It happens. I like to eat my food cold. People are always like, oh, do you want me to microwave that up for you? I'm like, no, thank you. I am good. I will eat it cold. I do not mind. As long as it's not frozen, we're good. But yeah, you're eating plastic all the freaking time. That's mostly how it gets in our system. And in my opinion, it has to just be in the air at this point, because like, if something plastic hits like the sidewalk, don't you think that friction is causing some of the particles or whatever to get in the air? Like, I know it must be in the air at this point. It has to be. There's chemicals in the air regardless that aren't good for us, but I have a hunch that there's some plastic in the air too. It's definitely in our soil. It's because that has to do with littering for sure, but also other causes. And then even just water that has the micro and the nanoplastics in it. Once that water gets into like the ground, or if it goes on the ground or something, then the plastics are in the soil for sure. But you just have to start kind of thinking and being aware that the ecosystem is an ecosystem. And you know how your house just like gets dirty, and it's like, sure, you know the cause is why, but it's kind of hard to explain, but it's your house, so you can clean it. That happens outside too, okay? And you can think of the ways that it happens, but also some you just don't even exactly know how to explain it, but it's just kind of common sense physics that stuff happens and stuff leaches into the environment, but we don't clean it. Because it's harder to clean outside than it is inside to a certain extent. You can't just like wipe it down with some vinegar. Like, it doesn't work like that outside. You can't clean the soil and the water like that. And cleaning the water is easier than cleaning the soil if you can just filter the water. But it's like, how are we going to fix our soil? How are we going to fix our bodies? Like, we simply aren't. Like, we're just going to have to do better in the future so that it doesn't get worse, and so that eventually over time it gets better, because the good will overpower what we've done in the past and what we're doing now. But it's like, yes, there's a climate crisis. I'm not going to say there's global warming. I don't believe in that. I believe in a climate crisis though, because there's chemicals and plastic in our environment. That's a climate crisis. I don't believe in global warming, but I believe and the climate crisis. The weather's getting extreme. There's extreme heat. There's also extreme cold. There's extreme winds. There's extreme snow. There's extreme rain. There's extreme drought. Yes, there's a climate crisis. It's not global warming. It's pollution. Pollution is plastic. Pollution is chemicals. Pollution is all things that does our body harm, does the animals harm, does the plants harm, does the soil, the water, the earth harm. So we just need to be aware, especially of plastic in the environment, but this also goes for toxic chemicals too. I'm very into like low tox stuff, preventing poison from getting into our earth. Let's stop making poison. Let's stop buying poison. Let's stop eating poison. Let's stop polluting the earth. Is it really that hard to get on board with? It seems pretty simple. It's just hard to, step out of this norm of what's convenient and what we've been doing. But really, we've only been doing it the past 100 years. It's really not been that long of doing this, yet there is so much damage done from it in this past 100 years. So it is really up to us, humans who are alive on Earth right now, to do better, okay? And no, I'm not saying it's your fault that you caused all of this. No, we all did. I did. Everybody did. And no, it's not like we created the toxins and we infused it and injected it into the earth. I'm sure you didn't do that. unless you are some mad scientist who did that. Shame on you. But no, it's us. We, maybe you didn't, but my parents bought Roundup in the past. Like, I've bought in toxic things too, without knowing it, of course. And then once I'm made aware of that, then it's my duty to change it. I made a video on TikTok a couple months ago about how we cannot continue to remain blissfully ignorant, how ignorance is not bliss, and how it is our responsibility that once something comes into our stream of awareness, it's our responsibility to look into it and be more aware of what we are consuming and producing, consciously aware. So, thank you for listening. I hope you guys learned something. Comment below what you think. Peace and love.